All right, welcome to another exciting edition of Buc What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Super Heavyweight. You follow me and I'll follow you back. I love to talk football. Tis the season. We got through our first game. I'm satisfied because there weren't any major injuries, and we got to see a little taste of what we could potentially see for this season. So I'm excited. Guys, I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues. I'm going to start with Peter Blake, the nature boy, the man, the myth, the legend. That guy is that guy. Peter Blake, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Follow me on Twitter at pblake1003, or, of course, listen to the most entertaining sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area. That's right, the only FM local sports talk show from 3 to 5 on Saturday afternoons, the Sports Web. Bring your passion, bring your excitement, just don't bring any nonsense. It's the evolution of sports radio. We give our fans walk-up music. We let you call in twice. We care what you have to say. That's Saturday afternoons on the Tan Talk Sports Network. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about.
And folks, please call into the show, check the show out. You will be entertained. If 2 hours of your time will be well spent. And my next colleague, the guy, Mr. Pigskin himself, Mr. Buzz, Rick Brown. How you doing?
What's up, my friends? What's up with this buzz stuff, man? I don't have no buzz. Okay. Maybe a little bit of buzz. I got more buzz than the Charlotte Hornets, if you know what I mean there. Listen, y'all can find me at Rick. You can find me on Twitter at RickBrown91. You can also find me.com, where I'm breaking down stuff with the Bucs. Today I had a story on Jonathan Banks and how his attitude is right for this training camp because he knows he's in a battle for not only playing time but a roster spot. But he's up to the challenge, and I think it's a good read, but, I'm kind of biased. Let me know what you think. Today's pigskin.com. Go on to NFC South, click on the Buccaneers. You see me and Roy coming. These doses of everything Buccaneers.
All right. And, guys, we had this game on Thursday with the Philadelphia Eagles. We got to see some players that a lot of people have been asking about. Noah Spence. We got to see a little bit of Vernon Hargraves. We got to see Arguello, our kicker, and I'm excited. I really am excited. I know that the game, it was a loss, but if you take away the turnovers, which is something we're going to talk about tonight, this may be a different game. Guys, I'm excited. I like what I'm seeing on defense, and I know it's early, and I know everybody's trying to be as conservative about their thoughts on the team. But you know what? I'm a homer. I'm that guy. I'm a Bucs fan. I'm excited. It's improvement from what we were seeing last year. So me personally, I'm going all the way out there and saying I'm excited about this year, and I can't wait to see it. Pete, I'm going to get your thoughts on this offensive line. I've listened to the Four Letter Network for a few minutes. I had to turn it off because it was just too much for me. But, what do you think about this offensive line? I know this is the first game. You can't read a whole lot into camp based on the first game. You have to. You're going to see progression, and you're going to see improvement with the right coaching staff. So I wanted to ask you about what you thought about the offensive line and any moves that were made that you like.
Well, first, let me get this out of the way. I'm never going to be ever associated with being conservative. I'm never going to be conservative. I'm a guy that's a Bucs fan, but you also, tape doesn't lie. You look at the offensive line, a little bit of a rough patch there. I'm a guy that's Fletcher Cox getting in there against the guards and Ali Marpet and Penfield. I don't know who blew it, but somebody blew the coverage on that. Somebody didn't block him, and it's bound to happen. You get your mistakes out of the way. Overall, I thought the offensive line was solid. I thought they were solid last year and signing DeMar Dotson to a 3-year extension, getting him back in the fold after having a tremendous knee injury is only going to help this line out. They have a lot of depth. I'm excited about the line as well. And you know what? The 2 turnovers, look, it's not the way you're going to start the game. Kenny Bell fumbling the ball on special teams is not the way you start. But again, overreaction here in the Tampa Bay area. Calm down, people. Take your Prozac. Take your meds. It's the first preseason game. Get all that mess out of the way, because when the season starts, you don't want this type of stuff happening. So I would say overall, I was, after they had the turnovers, they finally get it together on the first drive. They look pretty decent to me. Look pretty good. Jameis Winston, of course, getting a touchdown against to Russell Shepard was encouraging to see, because, again, we're looking for that third wide receiver, even though it appears it's going to be Adam Humphries.
All right. And Rick Brown, I want to ask you the same question. What did you think about the offensive line as you were watching that Eagles game?
Actually, I thought the line performed well. The backups in particular. Pete spoke about the starters, and other than that blip early on, I thought they performed very well, very encouraging. Kevin Panfield, to me, is a rising star. I mean, he's versatile. He can play guard. He can play tackle. He can play tight end. He probably could play. He practiced on center this year. Let's hope that it doesn't come down to that. But he's very versatile. And what I like about Kevin is he's serious about his craft. He's serious about being good at whatever they want him to be good at. And I thought he performed well, with the exception of that play where he got beat as well as Ali got beat. Ali's man caused the fumble. Kevin's man pounded on Jameis. It was ugly. But
Yes.
and I thought the backups performed very well. The run game, I wouldn't get too out of bed about having only 31 yards of running game. They ran, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs, I think, during the game. So there's no consistency. They really didn't run play. And Dirk mentioned this week that when you're in game type situations, and if a running play is working, you're going to keep coming back to that running play. You're going to run it 3-4 times. They didn't do that in this game because they wanted to see what the guys could do in different situations. So I'm not too concerned about that. When Doug was out there, he ran hard, and he was able to slip through some cracks, and he looked like Doug from last year. Get him out. I don't want to see him hurt. I thought he played too many plays anyway. For me, Doug Martin wouldn't touch the ball this preseason. I'm sorry. That's just me.
Mm-hmm.
I might let him get hit in practice or whatever, but he's too important to this team.
Absolutely.
So I thought the offensive line performed pretty well. I want to see them now against this Jacksonville defense, because this Jacksonville defense is really no joke.
Yeah.
No.
You know what? We've always, over, I'd say, the past 7-8 years, we've been looking at the Jacksonville Jaguars and kind of dismissing them. Actually, the NFL has, but they've kind of put together, quite a squad on both ends of the ball, and I'm really excited to see how Tampa does against that defense. And, good news that we do have Charles Sims back at running back, so that's another added plus. And, like you were saying, Rick Brown, I'd rather see some of these reserves and backups play rather than seeing a Charles Sims or a Doug Martin. I would rather see these guys kind of get reps to see what you have. That may be somebody that you put on the practice squad, and you may be able to call up where they are getting these valuable minutes.
Yeah, I can see that. I see both sides of it, because you do want your team to be regular season ready. So you want them to take hits. You want them and the offensive line to develop a system where they know Doug likes to cut back at a certain spot. They know they have to get a little They have to get their blocks a little faster with Charles Sims because he hits the hole faster. I understand that. I still think you can replicate it a little bit in practice. Not as much, but I still worry. I remember a few back maybe 8-9 years ago, the Skins were playing their first preseason game, and I cannot remember the quarterback, and it's a daggone shame. I want to say it was Rex Grossman, but he threw an interception, and Clinton Portis got the guy and threw a shoulder into the defender, slammed him down. Great tackle, but he hurt his shoulder, and he was out for 4 weeks or whatever it was.
Right.
You know, I'm not saying that Doug is going to do that or whatever, but the guy's important, and you don't need to see Doug Martin in the preseason. I understand you want him to get his reps and all, but you don't need to see him. I always err on the side of caution because of what I've seen. A lot of athletes getting hurt in preseason. So on that note, I would rather see him not play as much. And if I can just go back, and Pete, you mentioned this about DeMar Dotson getting a contract extension this week. Great guy who, I mean, he doesn't talk a lot in terms of he's not a boaster. He's not a guy who's got that mean streak and all. He's just solid. He's just consistent.
Yep.
And this camp, everyone has said he's gotten better. He's been most consistent offensive lineman the team has had. It was nice to see the organization reward a guy like DeMar Dotson with the contract extension. So congratulations, DeMar. Now make that money and keep on blocking.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think he was one of the lone bright spots on this offensive line. You could have said a couple of years ago, solid. I'll take a solid offensive lineman, okay? Guy started out as a basketball player, big body, raw. He's developed over time. He definitely deserved to be rewarded because, look, Gosler Chairless, he did a pretty good job last year, but he's no DeMar Dotson. Okay, so you have Dotson back in the fold here at right tackle. I think you're going to feel good about blitzes coming from that right side. But going back to what you were saying about Doug Martin, Rick, yeah, he's the centerpiece of your offense, okay? That's your identity. Somebody asked me this week, what's the identity of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Well, you could say Jameis Winston, you could say Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson, but let's not kid ourselves here, guys. He was the second leading rusher in the NFL last year. He is the centerpiece of your offense. He is your identity. So I wouldn't give him that many reps. I mean, you need to get him some reps to get a little bit warm, but he gets that in practice. Also, another guy that I would not want to see that much is Mike Evans. What do we know about Mike Evans the last couple of years? Hamstring troubles.
Hamstring.
So we got to keep these wide receivers healthy. So it gives the Buccaneers a great opportunity to really see what they have here in a Kenny Bell, in a Adam Humphries, in a Evan Spencer, in a Russell Shepard. What do they have? In a Speedy Reedy. What do they have there in this wide receiving core? Because I don't want to see these guys like a Vincent Jackson or a Mike Evans get hurt. Because look what happened last year. You were behind the 8 ball. You didn't have Mike Evans. That offense didn't really take off until the middle of the year. I don't want that to happen again. I want everybody to be on board. I don't want any bad injuries. So this team could go theoretically 0-4 and have no injuries. I'm happy with that. Absolutely happy.
Yeah. And, kind of getting back to the offensive line, it's going to be Michael Pless, he's the writer for Real Bucs Talk. He had mentioned that this will be a good test against Cedric Marks and Malik Jackson. So I think that this line will definitely get tested throughout practice and including the game on Saturday at 7:30 against Jacksonville. So
And don't forget #1 pick Dante Fowler out of Florida, who was hurt last year with the knee injury. That guy's going to come too. Look, Gus Bradley, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been very patient with Gus Bradley because they believe that he has a pedigree. He's from Seattle. Of course, he was a former linebacking coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They believe in what he's preaching right now. They built this defense up. It's going to be a great test. It's a great point here. And from what you hear from practice, I know, Rick, you're privy to this information. Malik Jackson was very frustrated all day long because Donovan Smith was shutting him down. That, my friends, is very encouraging.
Indeed it is. And I really think this is the year that Donovan Smith has to take that next step. Him and Ali, for the most part. And
Sure.
they always talk about there's a jump between year 1 and year 2 and other skill positions and all that, but the offensive line has to have the same. And for the Bucs to be what they need to be, they need those two guys to perform at a higher level than they did last year, especially your left tackle, who has your blind side of your quarterback. You don't want him taking too many hits from back there. So that's a good sign to see that he was competitive enough to say, okay, let's go. And I like seeing that from your athletes.
Sure. And you
Yes.
put that guy on the island versus a speed rusher, you feel confident that Donovan Smith is going to be able to do the job. But there's a lot of uncertainty right now with the left side and having Donovan Smith there block with J.R. Sweezy being out. You don't know what the extended period of time is going to be. But like you said, I think Kevin Pamphile, to me, again, I think the Buccaneers could have made a case where you could have saved that money, put it in another direction, because to me, Pamphile played well last year. I didn't understand the need to upgrade. Look, I'm not a general manager or coach. I watch film. I thought Pamphile was fine last year. In fact, I think you're exactly right. I think he's an upcoming superstar. I think he's athletic enough to pull. And I didn't see when they pressured him on the left side last year, I thought he held his own.
He started against Jacksonville last year. Wow, how about that? He
Yeah.
started against Jacksonville last year. The Bucs had
Sure.
the most yards rushing than they had the entire season in that game. I think even more than that Philly game. I mean, they just dominated, and Pamphile was a part of that.
Right.
He has improved. I really think the Bucs were worried that by losing Logan, that they wanted another veteran right there to help continually teach Donovan.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, Sweezy has been hurt, and he hasn't been out there. But hey, a young Kevin has performed well, and hey, maybe you have to go into the season with your two young pups. And if
Sure.
that's the case, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, next man up.
I think they did a great job as rookies last season. I know that Jameis did take a lot of hits, but at the same time, I thought that they really matured very quickly to make plays, and I expect to, as you mentioned before, make that leap to get even better this season. So with that being said, I mean, on what would be your grade? Peter, I'm going to start with you. What would be your grade for the offense as a whole, including the turnovers? What would be your grade for this game, just watching all the players out there?
I would say B- to C, because I think he had the turnover, he had the offensive line breakdown. Jameis wasn't as accurate at first, but he did put it together. You saw some good screen passes there. It's tough to say because, again, you're going with the vanilla offense. They're not game planning in the preseason. So if you're putting a gun to my head right now, which I know you like to do, and that's fine because I'm a straight shooter. You got that? See how he did that? I would go with a B- to a C. I think that's pretty accurate.
All right. Rick Brown, I'm going to put you on the spot. So what do you think?
See, I thought they were good, but I mean, they only scored how many points? 9.
9. Yeah. Not good.
That's not enough, and I don't care who's quarterback. I don't care if this was a preseason game. Your backups, they have to perform as well because They may not be backups when the season starts,
Yeah.
or sometime during the season. So they have to make plays. Too many penalties. On both sides of the ball. The defense, and we haven't touched on them yet, but and so I won't blast them yet. Yeah. But as good as everyone's talking about, I have a couple bones to pick with the defense. And so for the offense, though, let's see. I mean, the offensive line probably graded out great. Russell Shepard probably graded out great. Jameis graded out okay, but he did have that fumble. Mm-hmm. So yeah, C's fine.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a C. It would have been a high B, but Mike Glennon just really disappointed me. I kind of felt like he kind of regressed from years past, and his decision making. I mean, I've never played quarterback personally, so I can't really relate to it. But just his decision making just kind of concerns me at times. Where he took a sack at one point, and I know that there were other options available to him after watching the game film, and there were just a couple of other plays that I just felt like he could have been more assertive and done a little bit more than what he did. So for me, if you take away that and some of the early plays for our third string QB, I give him a C. I'm right there with you. I'm in line on that.
Yeah, and I think Mike Glennon, to me, he showed what he's always shown. He's a backup quarterback in the league. Somebody's going to pay him an obscene amount of money because he is a quarterback in the league and because they see the statistics of, over 20 touchdowns, less interceptions. But what I see with Glennon is a guy that throws in double and triple coverage. I don't think he used to do it that much. Now he's doing it a little bit more. Maybe it was the second or third stringers, whatever. Okay, but to me, he doesn't have the mobility. He doesn't have the deep ball accuracy. He's never had that. So that's why he's a backup in the NFL. Let's not, misconstrue this. He's not going to challenge Jameis Winston for the starting job. And saying that, I think Griffin made some better throws than Mike Glennon, but you cannot make that throw at the end of the game. You just cannot make that throw. You have a couple more downs. I know it's a meaningless game, but in that situation, if you're at the goal line, it's first down, it's either going to go to that receiver or it's going to go out of the end zone. It can't be that way. It can't go to the Philly player. You just can't do that.
Yeah. All right. So, we kind of talked a little bit. We talked a little bit about offense. I definitely want to touch on defense because that's been one of the things that we've heard a lot about this season. Everybody's been concerned about the Tampa Bay defense, and a lot of people were disappointed in the way the Bucs drafted, and they felt that the Bucs should have drafted more defensive players. So I want to kind of touch on the defense, and I'll start with the defensive line. And this time, Rick, I'm going to start with you, and I want to get your thoughts on the defensive line in this Philadelphia game. What did you think about them? And just straight shooter, man. No chaser, okay? Let's get that, man.
The way I always give it to you, straight no chaser.
That's it. That's why we got it on the Sports Web. Come on, man. You've been listening to the show for a year and a half?
Was highly disappointed in the defensive team the first two series of the game. There is no way. I don't care if it's sudden change. I do not care if there's turnovers and you have bad field position. You cannot let the Philadelphia Eagles or no NFL team march down the field with no resistance. And, I mean, it was like a seethe, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. They just walked right down the field, mano-a-mano, and whipped them and got up 14-0 real quick. And, yeah, you can say, and what they did that afterwards, beautiful, great. When it counted, where were you? Disappointed in that. Would like to see that improve because there are going to be games where Jameis is going to start off slow. There's going to be games where there could be a fumble on the kickoff, or Doug will fumble, or Jameis will fumble, or throw that first pass pick like he did a couple of times last season. You know, is the defense? Are you just going to say, okay, we're down 7-0? No, you have to make a stand. You have to hold them to 3 points there, at least once. The first time I was like, oh, okay, defense was still sleeping. The second time, hello, give me something, defense. And don't get me wrong. We all know what the line did the rest of the game. All right, or the rest of the time they were in there. Great. Great. I'm happy. But what about the first 2 series when it mattered? I have a problem with that. Other than that, I mean, I thought you want to go individually.
Just kind of go down the line a little bit and give me your observations. I'll get Peter next, and then I'll go. But I'll start.
I think and Sean, the Sports Don, will love this. Gerald McCoy was doubled and did not hear his name called at all, but he did his job because you heard the name of Clinton McDonald, you heard the name of Robert Ayers, you heard the name of Noah Spence, you heard the name of Jaquez Smith, you heard the name of Clint Matthews. You heard these guys' names because Gerald was taking care of the middle. So that left one-on-one coverage with everyone else, and they performed well, especially against the pass. I thought, like I said, other than those first 2 series, the defensive line played pretty darn good. And if I was a Buccaneers fan, seeing that, I would be encouraged down the road, knowing that they didn't do anything special in terms of coverages or stunts or anything like that. It was basically mano a mano. And if they can beat their man like that, hey, you got to say, hey, bring on the season.
Yeah, and just kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier in the show, these are all vanilla plays. These are just basic football plays just to see what you do in that type of scenario. So I guess, to your point, I thought that they did good other than those 2 plays. And maybe you guys can help me with this because I didn't get to watch the Buccaneers broadcast. I had to be subjected to the Eagles broadcast. But I heard that Rondé Barber had made some comments about the defense giving up those 2 touchdowns. Did you guys hear that or?
Yeah, he was talking about sudden change. Oh, go ahead, Pete.
No. You're exactly right. I think the motto of this team should be accountability. Everybody has to be accountable this year. And, yeah, you get put into a short field position by your offense and you have 2 fumbles, but your defense still has to show up, and they were getting absolutely blasted off the ball. Now, in saying that, is it going to be like this during the regular season? I mean, we kind of heard this last year when Levante David said, well, Major Wright picked up a big penalty and our defense was deflated. You hope that this team is not deflated. You hope that this team is accountable, and in the Philly game, they weren't for those first 2 series. Now, after that, I saw Gerald McCoy get double and triple teamed, but I still saw him get that penetration. I still saw him cause that havoc for Clinton McDonald, for Noah Spence, for Robert Ayers. By the way, the Buccaneers made a underrated signing in Robert Ayers. He's absolutely killing it in training camp and mini camp. It could be in Pee Wee camp right now. He's absolutely killing it. He killed it in this game. He is what the Buccaneers have needed, that veteran presence, okay? And it seems like he's taking off. And again, you mentioned a great point, guys. We're not even game planning for the Philadelphia Eagles. We haven't even showed them. We showed them a little piece of what this defense could be. I think the most impressive thing is the front 4. I think the most impressive thing is you didn't go with a 3-4 defense like we're going to be promised. You didn't see a lot of linebackers blitz. You didn't see a lot of cornerback blitzes. You saw maybe a couple here and there. But overall, you have to be absolutely impressed by Noah Spence, by Robert Ayers, by Clinton McDonald, and of course, I know Sean the Sports Don wouldn't like this, but Gerald McCoy, to me, with that first step, he was a monster. This defense is going to be scary this year, guys. It really is.
Yeah, and I'm gonna follow that up, Pete, because There are some players that that you really didn't get to hear a lot about, and one of the guys is Howard Jones. And I know you've heard me mention him. I'm very high on this guy, and just watching him play, watching his motor, I know there's going to be a place in the rotation for this guy. I'm very excited about him and what he's going to be able to contribute to this defense. So Howard Jones is my guy. I keep hearing the name Noah Spence. Been hearing it since minicamp. Noah Spence, Noah Spence, Noah Spence. From coaches, from players. And, even some of the Jaguar players, you're hearing the name Noah Spence. I believe that this draft pick is going to be that special draft pick. If you go back and you look at the draft, I mean, this is a guy that I'm thinking personally is going to be that special player this season.
And it certainly seems like he's going to be. He's definitely got the speed. He's got the power. He's got the pass rushing moves. And let's face it, if not for his off-the-field stuff, he most likely would have been a top 10 pick because of the way he performed in his career in college. I mean, you look at his freshman career at Ohio State, 11.5 sacks. That was in line with Joey Bosa, but he outshined Joey Bosa. Okay, so you got this kid, and you got Clinton McDonald, who's won a Super Bowl, who's seen guys like Michael Bennett, and seen a guy like a Cliff Averill, and he compares Spence to a Cliff Averill. That's a hell of a comparison, but I got another one, guys, and maybe I'm jumping the shark here. This is what I do. Again, I'm not Mr. Conservative here. When I see Noah Spence, I think of Von Miller. I think of the moves. I look at the intensity. I look at the speed. It's all there. It's all there, and it's only going to get better, guys, because you look at the depth, the D word that this team hasn't had the last couple years on that defensive line. A Howard Jones, a Jacques Smith, an Akeem Spence, Gerald McCoy, Clinton McDonald. All these guys are healthy. Robert Ayers, all these guys are healthy finally. And they're only going to help Noah Spence out because who can you really double team? You double and triple team McCoy, okay, pick your poison, Robert Ayers. You double and triple team Robert Ayers, you got to go with McCoy. You double and triple team one of those guys, you got to get McDonald. And if you do that, then you got to get Spence. So who are you going to double team? It's going to be a better defense, and it showed just in that time span of that preseason game how dominant this defense could really be. It's going to be scary, guys.
And there was a defense that didn't have Will Golston, their top run stuffer at all.
There you go.
So the run stuffer that I have to tell you guys that has Jacques Smith on a bench. Your leading defensive end when it comes to sacks. Right. He's on the bench starting because Will Golston is just a beast in there. And so yes, this defensive line has potential. And I hate that P word. I mean, even Akeem Spence, you mentioned him. He balled the other night. I just, wow, where have you been? I haven't seen you since your first, have you? I'm not going to go there. But, okay. Because now, I like Akeem.
And I know this is a taboo subject because we haven't even gotten into the season yet. But could this potentially have anything to do with coaching?
Oh, you don't think? You
no,
think?
I'm putting this out there. It's been going. It's you know what? I'm doing everything I can to rein myself in, not to go out and say it, but just what I've seen from this team and what I've seen from these players, I believe that coaching is key here. When you're coaching players up, players that didn't show up. The past couple of seasons, and you see him making plays now, it just makes you wonder about the scheme or something's different.
I'll be that guy. I'll be that guy to say, hold your horses, okay? I'll be that guy. Okay, because check this out. Howard Jones, first year. All right, so he's going to be inconsistent. Jacques Smith, injury. George Johnson, bust. Injury, bust. Gerald McCoy, injury. Clinton McDonald, injury. Akeem Spence, PUP. Yeah. And then came into the season. So you have more depth now, most definitely. You definitely have more depth. But and you know, we haven't even mentioned Courtney Brown.
Tuh.
Is he going to make the squad? But anyway, but you had Courtney Brown in the rotation last year, and he might not make the squad this year. So this team is a little deeper. It's healthier right now, and I don't want to give Mike Smith and Dirk Cutter and the coaching staff too much credit until I see regular season play.
Gotcha.
When I see the regular season play, and if this defense is no, and not just the defensive line, if the cornerbacks are making plays on the ball, then I'll be like, Then I'll come back to your original question: could it be coaching? And I'll say, oh, most definitely. But until then, I'm going to hold back.
Revisiting this at the end of the season, we're going to be talking about this again because this is going to be something that I'm always going to be looking at. And you know, while we're talking about things that I'm looking at, we talked about penalties. Do you guys see more discipline on this team right now? I know the penalties are still more than they should be, but the penalties need to get reined in, period. But do you guys see, you know, guys playing in their assignments a little bit better, or are you guys seeing that right now, or what are you seeing?
Pete, you want to do this? You want to do this, Pete?
Yeah, I want to do
this. Because go ahead, Pete.
I mean, it starts off with Jude Abadejo Barima, if I pronounce his name right.
Ajay Barima.
Right, having well, it could be Hey Jude, but he may be Hey Jude, you're out of here after that penalty on pass interference, you know, like catch pass interference call or whatever. There was too many procedural penalties in this game. I get it. It's the first preseason game. And saying that, I've been watching this referee by the name of Cleet Blakeman. Now I have a name for him. Now, even though his last name is Blakeman, don't hold that against me because my name is Blake. I'm going to call him Cletus because from what I've seen, and any normal football fan has seen, Mike Evans got interfered with. I didn't understand how a big guy who's 225 pounds and gets his arm jerked back is not pass interference. But then you have a little guy like Dante Dye who basically gives the Philadelphia Eagle cornerback a little love tap to get us some separation. That's pass interference. How in the world does that work out? If you're going to call it one way, call it the other. How does it work out with Mike Glennon, who, by the way, is as mobile as the Statue of Liberty, which is not very mobile, but he takes a headshot, and Philadelphia doesn't get a penalty, but yet Akeem Spence, who will look like he did commit a penalty against the quarterback, I believe it was the rookie there, who, by the way, got bruised ribs because he got hit so many times from this defensive line, he picks up a penalty. Again, it's consistency in the NFL. If you're going to call it one way, then call it the other. Overall, though, maybe that's a cop-out. The Buccaneers still have to work on their discipline, and they still have to work on this penalty situation because, again, last year was out of control, and it was out of control in this game.
It was. 10 penalties is just too much. Too much. And I don't care if you want to call, and you know what, Pete? I'm with you. I will say 2 of those penalties were very questionable at the best, at the most. Yep. It was, all right, they were bogus. And I hate saying that about officials. But what about the other 8? Sure. I'm sorry. And so, yes, you can use any excuse you want. First preseason game, blah, blah, blah. But we saw signs of this last year as well during training camp. You've seen signs during this training camp where they're racking up penalties. They're not calling it all the time, but you see the referee kind of throw a flag or say flag or, hey, you did this or something like that. Mm-hmm. They have to rein that in because if you're going to hurt yourself. You're shooting yourself in your own foot. On your own foot. Yeah, and you're pulling a plastic cup, and that's not a good thing.
No.
So I'm sorry. So
you're the suicide squad. That's what I called them last year. You're killing yourself.
Yeah, you know. So I'm not ready to give Dirk's staff and don't. I think that staff has done a great job so far. And I think the defense is coming along, and they're gelling with Mike Smith, and they like the more aggressive schemes that we've been seeing in training camp. We probably won't see it in the preseason games, but we've been seeing what they've been doing, and I like what I've been seeing there. But at the same time, you got to hold tight. You can't jump off sides. You can't move the centers. You can't move the ball anymore. That's a point of emphasis. They're going to call that every time.
Sure.
And the other dumb penalties that they did throughout the game, where you've been like, really? I mean, one play, you talked to the Keem Spence one, Jonathan Banks, who I just did a story on today's pigskin.com. Check it out, folks. You'll love that story. Jonathan Banks made a great play where he knocked the ball out of the receiver's hands, stripped. Bucs recovered, wiped out because of roughing the passer. So you cannot, those things like that. The NFL guys, the teams, even though a team may be 0-14 or whatever, or 2-14, they're usually very competitive with most of the league. And most of the league is a 1, 2, 3 play difference every game. That's why a lot of games are within one score in the fourth quarter.
Sure.
So penalties like that really hamper your chances to win. And so the Bucs have to clean that up in this game right here. And this is a great game to do it in because of the Jaguars defensive line and the Jaguars offense behind Bortles and those two receivers, Heard and Robinson, who will give people fits all day. So, and I'm sorry, TJ. How can I forget about the running back, TJ Yeldon? So
well, you got Chris Ivory too. They added him free agency.
Yes, indeed. I forget, and we all know him very well from his days in New Orleans. Yes. So this is a great game to improve on that. I mean, you're going to have penalties, I understand, but the ones that cancel out big plays, the selfish ones,
it's the mental mistakes. It's the mental mistakes that get you. And you
those are the ones I want to see cleaned up.
A personal foul, and all of a sudden you've cost your team yards. These are things that I believe that now that there's game film, that coaches are actually looking at this and looking to improve on this penalty situation. I'm sure they looked at enough film last year to say, hey, we got to stop this or at least rein this in. And I know I've had this argument with people, and they say, oh, but you look at some of the better teams like the Seahawks. But the Seahawks have been winning. They are winning. Sure. And the Bucs are trying to get to where they're winning games, and they will be able to overcome these types of penalties. Where the Bucs right now, where they are a team that can't overcome these penalties if they get them. So this is a work in progress, and it is going to depend a lot on the coaches and getting these players in line to make sure that they're not making these mental mistakes and these back-breaking penalties.
And to that point, guys, I mean, how many games last year did the Buccaneers lose by 3 points or less? 5. So think about that for a minute. If you commit a critical penalty, which the Buccaneers did a lot of times last year, or a critical mistake, it costs you a game. It costs you a playoff appearance. It costs you an opportunity to be a winning team, and now you're a losing team. So, with everybody saying, well, the Seahawks do it, well, they're good enough to do it. They're good enough to overcome it. We don't know if the Buccaneers are good enough. I think they're good enough. You think they're good enough. Rick thinks they're good enough. But last year, they weren't good enough to overcome it. So you got to cut down on those mistakes. And, hopefully it's either got to be coaching at this point, and we're not saying it's coaching. So if it's not coaching, then some of these players that are committing these dumb penalties got to start being accountable, or they're going to start sitting the bench. That's just all to it.
Yeah, and I think we have a coach here that is not afraid to hold people accountable, so I think that plays into the team's favor. But, like I said, it remains to be seen what's going to happen. So, guys, what are you looking for? And I got ahead of myself here. I'm going to talk a little bit about the secondary because we really haven't touched on them, and that's been the big elephant in the room from last season is how good will this secondary be, considering all the yards that they gave up last season. So, Pete, I'm going to start with you. And what are your thoughts on the secondary as you've seen them through this first preseason game?
Well, I didn't see a lot of blown coverages. I didn't see guys missing assignments. I didn't see guys missing tackles per se. I saw Vernon Hargraves nearly have an interception to the house if he just catches the ball. I seen a lot of good things. I seen a lot of good things from Jonathan Banks, him making that play. I mean, that's usually a turnover, but instead it's a penalty. I was encouraged by it. I didn't see anything wrong, and I think it all goes back to the pass rush. If you have a pass rush up front that will get to the quarterback, it makes your linebackers and safety that much better. So in saying that, I thought the secondary played very well. I thought the safeties at certain points took some bad angles and missed some tackles. I saw a tackle or two that Quan Alexander could have made. But overall, the secondary, the linebacking core, I thought they were pretty sound. The safety position will be something we will have to watch because I'm not sure. I like McDougal and I like Conti, but I'm not sure. That may be a weakness. Hopefully it's not, but I saw some missed tackles, and I did saw some bad angles on some of those tackles.
All right. And, Rick, your thoughts on the secondary?
I didn't hear Brent Grimes' name called at all. I don't recall it being called. It could have been maybe doing introductions or something, which is a good thing.
Right.
Which is a good thing because because usually if a cornerback's name is called, if they're not having an interception or forcing a fumble, they're getting beat.
Mike Jenkins.
Tim Jenkins. Tim Jenkins.
The same player,
yeah.
Tim Jenkins, they could be the same players. They were both terrible last year. They're both god awful. Tim Jenkins, there you go. Both of those guys together, and they still be terrible, okay? No one equal out to the quarterbacks we have right now on this team. So call him Tim Jenkins if you want to.
Yes, indeed. So, but no, you're right. I thought Alteron played strong. I thought Brent Grimes played strong. Vernon has to make that catch.
Yeah.
Hargreaves has to make that interception. I'm sorry. Yes, it was high. I do not care. Everyone says you're a mini Brent Grimes, that you can jump, you can leap. It was in your hands. I'm sorry. I know you're a DB for a reason. If not, you would have been a wide receiver.
Very true.
Regardless, you got to make that catch. I thought JB played very well. I liked what I saw out of the cornerbacks. I thought McDougal actually played well. I did not watch film afterwards, so I didn't break it down. So there could have been some plays that he didn't play as well as I thought. But just off of the TV feed, I thought he came in well. I thought he was around the ball. I like him and Conti together. I think they complement each other very well. Keith Tandy, he just makes plays.
Yeah.
He deserves to be in the rotation.
Somehow he's always around the ball.
Yeah, he deserves to be in the rotation, and he will be this year. I don't think Ryan Smith won't catch him until maybe later in the year, if he does.
Right.
Major Wright didn't do anything crazy, which, and he stayed healthy, which is a start.
Right.
So because I think he's a decent player. So I thought, I'll give the secondary, actually I'll give them a B. I thought they played pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Vernon, if they cause a turn, they might be better.
Had mentioned Luke Rhodes, and Luke Rhodes had some plays in
linebacker. Linebacker, yes. As far as the linebackers, I thought the one thing I was encouraged about from the entire linebacker crew, Levante David did not miss a tackle. And if you remember last year early on, Levante was missing tackles, and we're like, "Whoa, what's up with that?" I had never seen Levante miss as many tackles early on last year as ever.
Guys, and I'm glad you brought that up. Honestly, believe he's confident in this scheme. I really do. I think he knows what he needs to do. He knows what his assignment is, and he looked confident. He actually did not he looked like that guy that we saw a year before last.
Yeah,
under Greg Schiano.
There you go.
But seriously though, I thought he was flying all over the ball, and you're right. Luke Rose has played. He's had a great training camp. He's played well, and it would not surprise me if he has one more. If he plays solid this game, pencil him in as a backup middle linebacker because he's been all over, and that's a good thing. I'm starting to see some depth from the linebacker crew that this team didn't have last year. A name I want you guys to watch this weekend. I think his number is 53. Adarius Glanton, 863 Polk County. What's up? Stand up. Lake Gibson guy. He's a Lake Gibson guy, but he flies to the ball. He missed a play last week, but he was there, and I like that. I was just like, whoa, woo! It kind of surprised me. So watch him this week to see if he can build upon that because he was I think he was on the practice squad for most of last year and came in late once the linebacker crew. Well, you know what happened to them.
We have a lot of players that are actually playing their hearts out trying to make this team. And
Michael, yes. Casanova McKenzie is another name to keep an eye on. These guys are pushing the Jeremiah Georges and who was the other linebacker? It was
Devontae. I seen Devontae Bond.
Devontae Bond.
Yes.
Exactly. That is linebacker guys. Viewers who's watching this, if you're watching this, check this out. Check out the reserve linebackers against Jacksonville on Saturday, because you're going to see some people flying to the ball. And that's where the next battle is going to be.
Yeah, and I think you definitely bring up a great point there, and I'd be curious to see when they go to those nickel positions who plays the middle linebacker. Will it be Darryl Smith or will it be Quan Alexander? Going back to the defensive line, I was trying to pay attention to it even though it was a preseason game. You know, the multiple combinations. If I were Mike Smith right now, what a great problem to have. Because do you put Spence on the right side with Ayers? Do you rush Ayers from the inside and put Spence on the right side? Do you put Spence on the left side with McCoy there? McDonald. I mean, they had all these different formations. And I'm just like, wow. You know, this is something different that we haven't seen. And I'm looking forward to seeing what this defense really is about. And they may show a little bit of that on the preseason, the third game of the season, because that's when they really start to strap it up and you really get an idea. But I just think keep it under your hat at this point. All the combinations that you can throw at these teams are going to confuse the hell out of them. And isn't it encouraging, guys, to see late round picks, Mark Dominic? Late round picks that are actually contributing to this team. Isn't that encouraging?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the majority of the players that Jason Licht has drafted are players that can play multiple positions in your skill positions, especially on the offensive line. You look at players like you were talking about Robinson earlier. He could potentially be a kick returner. I mean, I haven't gotten to see him. I haven't gotten to see him in that position, but he could potentially do that as well. I mean, you see a lot of these draft picks that are able to play in multiple positions, and the versatility is key. And I think that's and having it from the neck up, that football IQ that we always talk about on the show, just being able to have that, it really helps a team when you have guys that have it upstairs, and it makes things a lot easier.
Aqib Talib.
Shot himself. Barney Fife.
You mean Mr. Cab Driver there, Mr.
Bump the cab driver. That was easy.
And I know this is all.
This dude is shooting people. He's shooting at people, man.
Does Goodell
him and his mom and his sister. I mean, what kind of family is that all about? I mean, stay away from
does Goodell suspend him for shooting himself because it's violence against the NFL player?
If it were New York, he would be in prison for a year and a half.
I'm wondering. Goodell, he could get a fine out of this.
You would think he would get a fine, but I mean, are the lights going to turn on for Aqib Talib? I mean, I
highly doubt it.
He's a Pro Bowler. He's won a Super Bowl. You would think that the maturity issue with this kid or this man, I shouldn't say kid, but this man would take precedence at this point. And obviously, he's still doing this kind of stupid stuff, and being associated with his family is not helping him out. You would hope that eventually this guy's lights would turn on, but I just think eventually Aqib Talib's either going to end up shot, suspended, or in prison. I hate to say that, but at a certain point, he's got to get it together. And obviously, the situation off the field has not worked out this year for him. So I just don't get it.
I am an Aqib Talib fan.
I like him too.
But I've always been a fan because, but let me tell you something, and I don't know, you probably already know this, Pete, but you can take me out of DC, but you can't take the DC out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and what that means is that what's been in you, what you grew up, no matter what happens in your life, no matter the circumstances, you can become a billionaire. You can become an ordained minister. Mm-hmm. You can be whatever. Mm-hmm. But the values you grew up with will always remain. And they'll always be there, no matter what cover you put on out here. And so, and in times of stress, in times of discord, in times of drunkenness, maybe, it's going to come out. And so, Aqib, and what I say is, Aqib is Aqib.
Yep.
He is what he is. This is what you know what you're going to get with him, and he can be cool for a year. He could be cool for 2 years.
Yeah.
But eventually, it's going to come out because you cannot hide who you are.
No.
Yeah, and he's been that way since college. I've talked to KU alum and heard stories about this guy. I mean, he is who he is, and that's up to him. He's got to live his life. I mean, you can't sit here and judge people, but at the end of the day,
he's got a Super Bowl ring. He's got a Super Bowl ring.
He's got a Super Bowl ring, and Bucs fans will say, "Oh my God, why do we get rid of Aqib Talib? Because the guy is nothing but a nuisance off the field. The guy can't stay away from his family. He needs to stay away from his family. Cut everybody off. Cut the club
get out
off.
Of his own way.
He needs to become like a monk or something. Go into a pristine what is it? I forgot my line of thought there. A pristine chapel." And not get around anybody and just play football, because Rondé Barber, he was raving about this kid when he came out of KU. He was saying that he was the best corner, but the reason why he dropped so far is because he had weed issues at Kansas. I mean, that's the reason. It's not because of talent. It's because the guy likes to blow his chance. So there you go. So, I mean, one thing leads to another. Exactly. I mean, is it worth it? I mean, Sir Smoke-A-Lot, Josh Gordon is getting his 30th chance in the NFL. Hopefully he can take advantage of it. But who was he hanging out with when he got, the call from Roger Goodell?
His roommate.
Moron. Yeah, Johnny Manziel.
His roommate.
Johnny knows football. Yeah, that's who you should hang out with. Let's hang out with Johnny Manziel, because that's going to make my life better, because the guy's snorting coke. He's hanging out with models, and he's not playing football. Oh, when is he going to play football? You're never going to play football because you're a moron. And Josh Gordon, you have to stay away from guys like that. You're getting your 30th chance in the NFL. Take advantage of it, please.
Yeah. So, guys, I appreciate you being on. We're gonna kind of wrap this up. Jacksonville Jaguars. Pete, give me one player that you are expecting big things from on Saturday.
I'm hoping Kenny Bell shows up because you've heard so much about how great Kenny Bell plays in training camp. He's got the potential here. You know, he could obviously change the Buccaneers' mindset if Vincent Jackson say they get rid of him next year. He starts to play well. It may start here with Kenny Bell. I like to see Kenny Bell be productive because, look, if Vincent Jackson does go down or Mike Evans goes down, you have a Dante Dye, you have an Adam Humphries, you have a Russell Shepard. I like to see Kenny Bell show out on Saturday versus the Jaguars. How about that?
That's great, great, great. Rick Brown.
He stole my thunder because that's my story for Saturday. That's my story for Saturday at todayspigskin.com. Check it out. Expect a big game from Kenny Bell.
Great minds think alike. Synergy,
yeah,
baby.
Yes,
Synergy right here.
But no, and I'm not going to even try to come up with someone new because I really think he needs this game not only for his confidence, but for the confidence of the coaching staff as well as the other players, because they see what he does in practice. They see that he can do it. They need to see it on the field. Let's see if Kenny Bell can do it.
Hey, my guy is going to be Austin Seferian-Jenkins, ASJ. I think he's stepping up to the challenge, and he's been showing up in camp, made some plays today, and I expect big things from him. I think that this will motivate him. I think this will put him in a position where he will be able to contribute. He will be that second tight end in that dirt cutter offense. I believe that's what you're going to see. I believe this guy is out to prove a point, and I think that we're going to see a little bit of that on Saturday.
Hey, on that note, man, let me tell you this. Do not be surprised if 87 isn't starting on September 11th.
Well, guys, we're talking about two tight end sets. Brait and ASJ could both be on the field at the same time, and won't that be scary for some defenses?
But who's
absolutely?
Blocking?
I mean, it's a
who's blocking?
Well, there you go. I mean, that's the problem. Is it Brandon Myers? Is it Luke Stalker? I mean, that's the problem.
Stalker be in the backfield. So
right,
and then you go jumbo. Ooh, that's still ooh. Yeah. I don't know how often they can be on the field at the same time unless if you're not
Yeah, they can't block. That's bad for Winston. I mean, that's not good. That's not a max protect. That's not a max protect formation that you want to go with because both of those guys are not good blockers. That's just the problem. They're not good blockers. They're good, maybe good route runners. I think ASJ could get more consistent with his hands. But I think, overall thinking about it from terms of, what kind of weapons you have if you put those two guys out in the field. But again, the downside is who's going to block. So that's probably the problem with it. But
remember what I said, though. Remember what I said. Remember that. That's my prediction. I'll just put it out there right now. I predict that on September 11th, ASJ will be the starting tight end for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
There you go.
Over camp favorite Cameron Brait, which everyone loves, and I love. I love his story. I love. He's had a great camp. ASJ will be starting.
And let me tell you something. This guy right here, Rick Brown, he knows what he's talking about because before everybody else, he was saying Vernon Hargreaves was going to be the #1 pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if you think he's BSing you, then you need to go and BS yourself. He knows what the hell he's talking about. So I would take it. And I would run with that if I were in Vegas.
Right. And, folks, thank you. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Peter Blake, Rick Brown, thank you both for being on with me. I really appreciate it. Folks, remember this. This roster is fluid. It can totally change from between now and the first game of the season. So just keep staying tuned. Keep checking out the Bucs. Check out Buc What You Heard. Be sure to check out the Sports Web. Peter, tell everybody how they can get a hold of you again.
Yeah, absolutely. The Sports Web on the Tan Talk Sports Network, the evolution of sports talk radio, where we give the fan an opportunity to be a star. We give you your own walk-up music, 3 to 5 every Saturday afternoon, the only local sports talk show in the Tampa Bay area on the FM dial. Go ahead and switch it to the other radio stations. They're all national, but not the Sports Web on the Tan Talk Sports Network. I'm your host, Peter Blake, giving you something to think about.
All right, Rick Brown, you've got an article coming up. You kind of gave us a little tease. Tell everybody how they can get a hold of you so we can check that out on Saturday.
Definitely check out todayspigskin.com, as well as my articles. Check out Roy Cummings' stuff. We have Bucks coverage out there, easy, and I'm telling you, you will enjoy it. We're trying to give you the best Bucks coverage that you can read. And we're trying to give you stuff that you won't read anywhere else. Or you will read some of it, but we're going to give you something that you say, I didn't think of that. I guarantee you that. And that's what we aim to do. Also, holler at me on Twitter, guys, at RickBrown91. I don't bite, although the moon is full. And, yeah, I get a little antsy then, so be careful what you say. But I'm going to bring it to you straight, no chaser, as always. So, Gene, thank you for having me.
And I just want to say this.
Definitely.
The next couple of weeks here, Rick Brown and Roy Cummings will be in the studio doing a football roundtable on the Buccaneers on the upcoming NFL season. That'll be on 106.1 FM, formerly WTAN 1340 AM. And if you're listening online, tantalk1340.com. Mr. Buzz himself, Rick Brown, along with Roy Cummings. How do you go wrong with that? I mean, what are you doing on Saturday not listening to the Sports Web? What are you listening to? Are you listening to that other network that has national people that have no idea about what's going on in the Tampa Bay area? Come on, man. Let's do something about it. Bar none.
There you go.
He's the man. He's the man.
And I want to thank all the viewers, everybody checking us out. Thank you for checking us out. Give us some likes. I appreciate all the comments, Michael Pless, Brian, and some of the other guys that I'm sorry if I missed your name. I'll get you next week. Thank you for contributing. Carolina Cat Chronicles had some Panther fans on here checking us out. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Buzz, baby, buzz. The Hornets, buzz.
All right, everybody have a good night.
Peace.